I've been waiting all day for this. Baron, my handsome man. Hi, human. Hey, babe. You ready? All right, let's roll it.
Hi, everybody. Thank you back. Thank you back. Thank you again for coming back. It's been a day, I guess. To Soul Sense, and today I'm really excited because Skylar is joining us, and Skylar is the founder and owner of the Vitality Way. Right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about that because there's a few things that you actually offer. One of the big pieces of that is a nutrition component. So why don't you tell us a little bit, first, thank you for joining us and tell us a little bit about what you do.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Ashley, for having me. So I'll talk about the name a little bit first because that can kind of delve into the idea of the different things that I do. So vitality essentially is energy, is in my opinion of how I've taken on the word too. It's sort of getting back to your balance, your best self. And so in that sense, what I have focused on throughout my whole life, and then really went through schooling to actually learn more to be able to provide more for others is nutrition. I have a lot of passion for food and the healing of food for people, and also energy work specifically with the medium of Reiki. And so I combine the two sometimes, or depending on what clients I work with and what their needs are, maybe more of the nutrition component or maybe more just Reiki for clients. And so I guess I could just do a little moment of sort of where the nutrition and how I got into it to give an idea of sort of what I focus on when I help clients. So specifically, I would say when I was very little, my mom was very ahead of the game in what she chose for us to eat, particularly because my brother has cystic fibrosis, which is a lung disease. And so we had to ensure that he was eating enough food that at that time he wasn't really able to get nutrients from the food that he was eating, kind of because of what medication was like back then and the nature of the disease. So my mom really had to do her research to ensure that he was getting nourished. And then at the same time, that kind of came into all of our lives as well. And so fast forward a few years, I was then a synchronized swimmer competitively for high school and university, and had to learn how to eat well for myself in those aspects of my life, particularly to make sure that the level of competition that we were working towards, I needed to make sure I had enough carbohydrates, enough protein, enough micronutrients as well. And so I got to learn firsthand not only how food helps if you are sick, but also how it can help to empower you for sport and etc. So my clients now that I work with, I went through a degree in sociology actually, and then that degree I had a class that taught me about mental health and sociology, and there was a really small aspect that talked about food and particularly lack of nutrients within our soil in North America particularly, and how that can actually impact mental health within our society. And there's a direct correlation actually with anxiety specifically and the lack of magnesium in our soil. And so
interesting.
Yeah, so lots of us who might have more anxiety, particularly now, because actually stress can also reduce the amount of magnesium in your body. So we've talked about COVID a little bit, but we might be in a time of higher stress right now, which can be depleting magnesium from our body. A direct relationship to not enough magnesium in our body is a symptom of anxiety, or that feeling of anxiety. And so oftentimes I suggest to clients to start supplementing with magnesium, or suggesting ways that they can get it through food more. And all of a sudden they start feeling a little bit calmer.
It's interesting because that's just one small piece of the importance of nutrition. And it's funny because with my clients, I get to work with clients, yoga, movement, through coaching, through addiction, mental health, all of these different things. I'm very lucky. But one of the first things I always focus on with clients is diet. Even if someone's coming to me with mental health and things that are going on situationally, one of the things I always ask them is, what's your diet like? What's your water intake like? Because our nutrition, whether people are aware of it or not, has such a huge impact. That gut health has such a huge impact on what goes on with our mental health. But growing up, we weren't taught that eating to give our body a chance to have proper gut health was what was going to make our mental health better. We were taught just because the Canadian food recommendation says we're supposed to eat this many for whatever reason, but they never delved into it in the way that I think you do. So can you take also a minute and explain even more why the importance of our nutrition affects our mental health?
Yeah, well, you talked about the gut specifically, and that is sort of kind of the main starting point, not even for mental health, but most anything that we are going through with diseases or imbalances within our body in general often starts from the gut. So there is lots of information out there now that correlates how much of the bacteria that is in our gut. There's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. We need a good balance of both, but oftentimes through stress, through the food we eat, through other toxins that we're putting on our body or into our body, depletes the good bacteria, and then we are left with too much bad bacteria. And when we have this imbalance, it starts impacting everything, but particularly it can really impact emotions, mental health, and how we feel and our general outlook with life. So a big example that I noticed, even specifically for myself, is when starting to take a simple way in which we can kind of help rebalance our gut bacteria is through probiotics. And so we've heard about these before. I'm sure most people have. You can get them through food. You can get them through supplements. There's definitely certain supplements that are better off than others. And when you do start talking more about the supplements, the reason why some supplements are better off than others is because they'll have more strands of bacteria. So when you're looking for a probiotic, you're actually looking for something that has multiple strands in it, and you want a really high bacteria count. So you'll see on the label of a bottle that it will say like 13 billion, 15 billion bacteria. If you're kind of new to probiotics, or you're just getting off an antibiotic, or you're extra stressed out in life, or you haven't been eating well lately, take the highest amount of probiotics in that pill that you're seeing at the health food store, the 50 billion or 100 billion, and take either it's a 2-week worth package or a month worth package. And that's the best way to fully really get the nutrients into you. And I swear to God, every time I do this, I start feeling joyful again. And not that I don't feel joy. I'm quite a joyful person, actually. And
but I attribute that to because you have probably, as a nutritionist, I would think some of the best nutrition, you feed yourself what it is that you need.
Yeah. Well, and so another thing, just talking a little bit about probiotics again, to just kind of drive home, is even when we're young, we are so affected by our gut bacteria. So particularly the food that we were given as children can really implement our mental health now in life. So if we weren't nourished properly as children, which honestly most of us weren't, we were picky eaters. We ate French fries a lot, chicken, hot dogs. Our parents didn't have the same knowledge that they do now about food. It just wasn't out there. And so a lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of my friends even that are about my age, which is late 20s, early 30s, are now recognizing and struggling with not only mental health, but gut issues, diabetes, multiple things that really still resonate from the gut. And it's not necessarily from what they're doing now in their life. It's more so from what happened when they were younger.
Wow. Okay. And then also, so coming back to that, because one of the things that I know I've read along the way, and correct me if I'm wrong also, but 80% of our serotonin in our body is produced in our gut.
Yeah.
And so when this piece of us is unhealthy, we're actually already coming up below the line. We're not even giving ourselves a fair chance to be able to have clarity in what it is that we're feeling mentally because so much is happening there. So other than a probiotic, what are some other ways that someone can go about kind of cultivating a really good, another term I heard, like a gut garden? How do we kind of cultivate and change that dynamic a little bit?
Yeah, so there's foods that you can take for sure and consume for sure. Kombucha, the drink is one of them. If you don't have sensitivity to dairy, yogurt can be beneficial. And if you've heard of kefir before as well, I try to recommend, I know that tofu's out there and soy products can be fermented. There's a lot of research now about how different, particularly autoimmune diseases and thyroid conditions can really be impacted by soy products. So even organic soy products might not be particularly if you're eating them a lot, a very good form of fermented food for you. So if you research or if you just do a little Google fermented food, or you do a Google prebiotic food as well, prebiotic food, that is food that essentially you're taking in that doesn't have the probiotics in it, but it is nourishing your gut to be able to absorb the probiotics that you're getting from the other food.
Oh, I love that.
And grow your own bacteria as well. I don't want to mislead what foods they are, but if you just Google prebiotic foods, you'll find a whole list of good foods that essentially are helping to build and flourish that gut for you.
I love that. What do you think is one of the worst things that we're doing for our gut health right now that people maybe aren't recognizing, that you as the specialist in your field would say to a client, like, you gotta cut this fucking shit out, man. Like, it just isn't benefiting you in any way.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to discourage anyone necessarily, but the amount of consumption that, particularly during these times and high stress times, the amount of consumption that we as a society are doing through alcohol, through whether you're whatever else you might be doing, that's really those toxins that you're receiving to sort of help mellow you out in the long run is actually kind of doing a little bit worse for you. And also like processed foods as well. Those are kind of my biggest red flags for people. And then medication can also, and I'm not saying don't take medication, people need their medications, but just as a notice that if you are on medication, it can definitely be impacting the balance of bacteria in your gut. So consult your doctor or consult a naturopath, a nutritionist who knows a little bit more that can help guide you to suggest how to bring more probiotics into your life to help balance out these things that you are consuming that maybe you'll reduce your consumption, but it might not be realistic for you to actually stop your consumption of these certain things.
Right, certain things. And I think that's a big thing, we're all, with everyone who is kind of turning to substance, through these moments or turning to alcohol, and there is a reason for that. So I think that that's great. And saying that is, not saying to stop doing it, but also maybe it's a time to check in as well as to why we are doing and using those things, and what kind of are we trying to escape, or what are we trying to do in this time. What other information would you share with people who are maybe struggling right now, also in COVID, with nutrition, or someone who maybe has kind of gotten into that slump where they're not taking care of themselves? What are some really easy things for people who are unmotivated with their diet? What are some easier things that they can start to incorporate? Because not everybody is a cook or a chef, or maybe knows what it is that they're supposed to do, or they think they're making good decisions, but they're not actually.
Yeah. So I have a blog post on my website that I would suggest, if you're listening to this and want to know a little bit more, you can watch it, and read it. And it's very specific about how to build your gut health, actually. And there's a step-by-step process of what you can do. And basically you can just pick and choose sort of what would work for you and what might not work for you with the suggestions that I have. And it's sort of my basis that I end up talking to most of my clients in our first meeting about, because pretty much everyone has to start in the same place until further growth can really happen. And so certain examples that are on there is, and there are things that probably people are familiar with, but I go a little bit more into detail as why you're doing it and what other alternatives you could do if you don't really like that one per se. So for instance, one of the best things we can do first thing in the morning to help build digestive juices to help break down food throughout the day that actually will help to reduce the growth of bad bacteria and help good bacteria and good nutrients come into our body is either grapefruit juice, or I'm sure everyone's heard about apple cider vinegar in the morning, lemon water in the morning. My favorite is the grapefruit because right now grapefruits are super, super strong for immunity, higher in vitamin C actually than some of the more common things that we think to go to for vitamin C, like oranges. And if you're trying to and wanting to reduce weight a little bit, it's actually one of the best citric fruits to use to help reduce weight. But it's like adaptogenic in a way that if you're not trying to reduce weight, it's not going to really, don't worry about it if that's not your issue necessarily. It's just kind of an added bonus for those that would be hoping to reduce a little bit of belly fat and strengthen immunity and bring up energy levels. And that's something you can do first thing in the morning. And it's discussed in that blog post with a couple other examples of ways throughout your day you can be building your digestive tract essentially to ensure that you're getting the nutrients that you need so that you can feel better.
I love that. One of my biggest, and I'm just going to get you to say it so I can then refer clients back to it, water intake. It doesn't matter how many times I say to people, this is like a thing. Like this is a thing. So what do you say to clients who you maybe recognize are having a harder time with drinking their water? Or like I have grown-ups say to me, I just don't like water. Like what it kind of, I think, goes back to that almost childlike mentality of like, we just don't want to drink it. But what do you say to your clients who aren't doing it, and how do you get them to?
Well, I try to sort of get to, I get to the basis of like, okay, why don't you like drinking water? Are you not thirsty? Is it not around you? Do you not like the flavor? Like, is it flavorless? So you're just kind of bored of drinking it. And so then when we kind of like get to the root of that, then we come up with plans or examples of ways that they can be incorporating it more into their life. The biggest thing for me, because I'm actually I'm probably one of those people that definitely throughout the day is not drinking enough water, and I have to constantly be thinking about it. I am classic in that I don't really like the taste of it. It like bores me to drink it. I'm not a big drinker of things to begin with. So like I fill up really fast. But for me, the biggest thing that helps me and that has helped clients as well is just get a water bottle and bring it around with you. But then my problem is I'm so forgetful that I'll lose my water bottles constantly. I'll leave them everywhere. And so when it's that case for people too, it's just maybe there's another sense of awareness and mindfulness that you can learn from that whole process as well.
Right. It's funny. I play games with myself. Like I'm a big coffee drinker. And so, you know, as someone who's moved away from addiction and different things, I no longer drink alcohol also. So my biggest vice right now is coffee. That's like I'm doing bad when I put 4 cups of coffee in my body, but I always leave 2 glasses of water on the counter, and it's like a game. Like when I walk into the kitchen, I have to drink them, and then I have to refill them, and then I have to go do whatever I was doing. Or I don't get to have a cup of coffee until I actually have 2 glasses of water, which sometimes is me over the sink, just like gasping for air, just like trying to get these glasses of water down. But it's like a game for myself. And if I can do 4 or 5 glasses before noon, then I know I have only like 3 left for the rest of the day. But it is, I don't think it's easy for anyone, myself in the physical part of wellness, or you in the nutritional part. So it is kind of a bit of a struggle, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? And I'll play devil's advocate a little bit right now with, and by all means, anyone who's listening, do your own research in this. I'm not saying it's just another perspective, but I had a great conversation with an Ayurvedic doctor once, and she very much, so the conversation sort of went about water, and it was asking, she was teaching a group lecture, and a woman raised her hand and said, listen, like, I know that I'm supposed to be drinking like my X amount of water a day. She's like, but I honestly, I'm small. I can't, like, even if I try to consume as much as I'm supposedly supposed to consume, I don't feel well. Like I get bloated, and I'm really like almost tired. Like it's almost opposite for her than what we're told that water will do for you, right? When you're drinking 8 cups a day or whatever it is. And so this Ayurvedic doctor actually looked at her and said, well, and I'm not as familiar with Ayurveda medicine, but said, well, based on your body type and based what I know about that body type, it actually would make sense to me that if you're not craving the water, you might actually be fine. So just as a holistic nutritionist, my philosophy is trying to get people more in touch with, and actually through Reiki as well, get people more in touch with their body to know when something is a craving and when something is a necessity. And so in the sense with water, there could be potential within you that you might actually not need as much water as, because we're all different, right?
Yeah.
So
and it's a generic a generic number for everybody.
Yeah. So if you are someone that, and now like educate yourself on symptoms of like dehydration. If you're getting headaches all the time, if you're really foggy and you're tired, if you're swollen, and these are very common symptoms of not having enough water. If you exercise, if you're drinking like 2-3 cups of coffee a day. But if you don't have those direct symptoms of dehydration, or you're not putting into your body things that are dehydrating and you're not thirsty, you could be stressing yourself out more, but by trying to
do it. That's actually really interesting, and I've never stopped to think about that. As you know, I've actually never stopped. I'm always like, we're all so different, and everybody's prescription is so personal. But drink 8 glasses of water, because that's what we're all supposed to do, you know? Yeah. So it's actually really interesting to hear you say that. So then you've mentioned Reiki. So I want to kind of tap back into this piece now, because first off, I want you to take a minute for people who don't know what Reiki is. Okay. Let's go ahead and just stop there. And I want you to take a minute to explain what Reiki is.
So it's energy work. So first I'll get into just a brief description of what even that means. And
Yeah.
so there is our regular physical body. There is our mental mind. There is our spiritual body. And there is our there's our emotional body as well, our emotions. So we have our emotions, we have our mind, we have our physical, and then we have our connection to spirit. Some of us have a stronger connection than others, and that might change throughout people's course of life. But all of these are actually different things that are our energetic bodies that resonate within our energy and our self.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have an aura around us. And if you do more research, some people can even, they're so attuned that they can see your aura. It can come out in different colors. And this is your energy. This is all four of those things I just talked about kind of are represented in this energy field of yours. And so then we have our chakras, which are probably one of the more common things that people have heard discussed. There's within the yoga traditions, we talk about the chakras and many other traditions as well and teachings. And so the chakras are energy points within our body. Some people think there's 7, some people think there's more than that, but it's essentially areas in which we have more energy resonating there. So our heart chakra, for instance, so where our heart is, we have lots of emotion that comes through there. We have lots of thought that comes through there. We have lots of physical touch that also comes through there. And so these things all will impact that area of our body even. And so then the last thing within the energy explanation that I'll talk about, and then I'll get more into Reiki, is the meridians. So meridians are essentially an idea of energy pathways or highways that connect our chakras or energy points to each other. So it's kind of like if one of your chakras is out of balance, then it's almost like a traffic jam for the meridians, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I visualize and see the energy in our body very much like blood. And so blood has nutrients that gets to the rest of our body, whereas the meridians take the energy just through our body and bringing it to the different chakras, which the blood is bringing to different organs. So I don't know.
That's a beautiful way of explaining it, because that was actually a really great way to break down all of that. It makes a lot of sense.
Because it's a huge conversation too, and it is something that can get very lost in with people. And if you follow, you follow. But if it's something totally new for you and totally different for you, I really try to figure out a way to explain it so it can make sense, because it is something that isn't necessarily studied as much, and it's very hard to scientifically prove it per se. So and I'll get a little bit more into what Reiki specifically is, but as a leading into, if you don't believe in it, if you are resistant, there's not going to be much that you're going to feel from it, because the power of your mind is so friggin' strong that if you're not resonating with it, you're not resonating with it. So I always ask my clients to just be very open and know that Reiki only provides positive to you, no negative. And essentially what the Reiki does is it helps to unblock your chakras at different points and to help flow the energy more through you. And so specific things that can come out from this at the physical level is it helps to reduce discomfort in your body, pain, especially. I have had many clients that have come to me who are healing from pretty severe injuries like collarbone injuries and etc. that in their 60-minute session, not only do they not feel the pain at that point really, or they feel more of a numbing of the pain. So it helps just to calm you and relax you in order for your bodies at the cellular level to heal faster. And it's honestly incredible because I've seen it work. And we are taught actually to not treat any, or not to work with anyone that actually has a broken bone that hasn't been fixed yet. Because if it hasn't been put in place yet, the healing of the energy can be so strong that it will put the bone out of place, potentially.
Wow. Okay.
That's actually the only time that we're not, that we've been taught not to use Reiki, is if they haven't had a bone reset yet. So that's at a physical level. And so then at emotional level, it can help clear emotional blockages and help you to feel more positive. And so as a reminder, our energy is affected by so many different things. So these blockages that we have in our chakras might actually be from childhood. They might be from something that we don't even realize had impacted us or affected us. And the trickle effect of this blockage might make you feel out of balance in certain situations, might make you more apt to be angry and stressed out in the snap of a finger for certain things that you don't even understand or resonate specifically. And so the energy that happens through the unblocking of the chakras on the emotional level can help to reduce stress, anger, resentment in ways that to help create more positivity in your life and more ability to let go of things that you don't even realize you were still holding on to.
Yeah. Or I think things that we think we've in some way tried to conceptualize that we've actually dealt with. And yeah. I think a lot of the time we do that as people, right? Because we haven't thought about something or we haven't put ourselves back in that moment, we think that time is the thing that's actually allowed us to deal with it when really we've just been hiding it. And that was one of my first experiences with Reiki. And even as someone who was in wellness and who really did believe in the power of the mind and the power of all of these things, I was also still a little skeptical of the practice of Reiki. And my first experience with it, it was almost as if a floodgate opened so that I didn't even realize I was holding on to. And then I thought I was farther along in my life and realized that like all my shit was at my root chakra, and that was like the place I needed to start. And I was like, damn it, like I really thought I was farther up, like I thought like I had more to do, but it is. I think it's opening ourselves up to what that is, and that we do all have kind of those things that are lingering a little bit. Yeah.
One of my clients once, it was so great the way he described it. It was his first experience with it, and he comes out, and I was like, so how was that for you? And he goes, whoa, it was like a massage for my soul. It was so great.
It's so true. And then what they also, like a Reiki sleep, the sleep that I always get after a session is one of the best sleeps that I actually have experienced.
Yeah, I'm totally quoting this wrong, but or not exactly, but something about the deep meditation that comes from your 60 minutes of Reiki is equivalent to, and maybe you remember this, but it's equivalent to like X amount of REM sleep. That is like, and I can't remember what the exact, but there is knowledge out there and studies out there that have shown the direct correlation to just how relaxed and nourished you really receive from the Reiki energy right after your session. And so what I love even more than and I've gone to my own like counselors and therapists before, but when I first received Reiki for myself, before I became a practitioner, the healing that came from the session not only did so I felt like good leaving the session, but I was still like, I didn't really know what it was. My mom suggested, my mom's one of the first yoga teachers in Kingston. She's very into holistic wellness, and I've always grown up with it. So she always has sort of shoved me into things, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. What am I doing? And so I received Reiki for the first time at a time where I didn't even realize I was joyless, and I was completely lost. I was in a long-term relationship and I thought I was going to marry the guy. We were saving for a house. I was working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet, like just in a circle. And after that experience, I was reminded actually from the Reiki practitioner, who sometimes during Reiki, your practitioner will have some visualizations or things that they sense that come up because it's a very intuitive practice as well, that it always blows my mind even for myself. I know I'm an intuitive person, but I wouldn't necessarily say I am like a psychic by any means. But the things that I can pick up through a Reiki session from my client is always dead on about what they need to hear at that point specifically. And so for me, it was at every single chakra, I was reminded of a joy in my life. And I was so disconnected from who I was myself that it wasn't until I was relating the experience to my best friend that she goes, she just like was able to share with you all the things that bring you joy in your life, right? And I was like, oh my God, no, I didn't realize that. And so it took me about 3 weeks with this honestly like renewed sense of power within me to be able to completely change my life around. And that's essentially why I'm here. I'm back in Kingston. I was in Hamilton at the time. And oh my gosh, so that happened in May of 2017. And by June of 2017, I was the happiest person I've ever been in my entire life. And all these things just kept on happening. I was connected to a family that then I ended up working in Costa Rica for a couple of years at a wellness retreat center. And none of this would have happened, honestly, if it wasn't for that Reiki session that I had.
So it changed the course of your life. Also, being open to something like that. For people who, and you say one of the biggest things is to be open. Mm-hmm. For people who, how often do you experience a client where they maybe want to convince themselves that they're open, but they actually don't allow themselves to be open? Is that something that happens often, where they don't get anything from a Reiki session, where they don't feel anything from that?
So none of my clients, particularly none of my paying clients have never, like all of my paying clients have always totally received and been actually more so. Those that might have been more skeptical have been blown away with what their experience was afterwards. And I say pain because I think that even that form of energy of exchange automatically makes you more open. There's something about that, because I've definitely had friends who I have offered to share it with, and there's no exchange, and they're just like, okay, let's see what this is. And at those points, they haven't necessarily felt or received the energy. And that is more me, I think, as a person, not even me, but there wasn't that exchange. It was like, oh, it's here for you, I can give it to you, rather than someone sort of seeking and inquiring and wanting to know about it for themselves.
Right. It does. And I've done my Reiki level 1 and level 2. I haven't gone through and sort of done master or any of that kind of thing. I actually really enjoy Reikiing my dog. Yeah. I find that animals are very
so
receptive to the energy, and which is really neat. But then I also use it on myself as well. And is that something that you find yourself doing? Yeah.
Every freaking day. I'll even so I have always I'm a more anxious person. And so your solar plexus is one of your chakras that is at your gut. And not ironically at all, when you're anxious, often you're feeling it sort of in your gut. And I know that there's certain things that if I haven't eaten well that day, if I've maybe drank too much the night before, whatever it may be, the anxiousness comes through again. So I am constantly at my gut trying to sort of
To just like do a thing.
balance myself. Yeah. And it's an instant feeling of just calm when you are able to give Reiki to yourself. And so like what you were saying, with there's the level 1, the level 2, and the level 3, at least in the Usui method, which we've both been taught the same method of Reiki, which comes from a Japanese man. And so in that method, each time you go through your different level, you are being attuned by the Reiki master to be able to receive. And essentially what is happening is that when you do Reiki, is you're taking energy from the ground or from the universe that's just around and channeling it into the other person, or if you're doing it on yourself, into yourself. And so I do have lots of clients that get worried that they don't want to come to me because they know they feel like they're so stressed out, they're so crazy, they're not doing well, they're super out of balance, and they're like, I don't want you to take that on at all. And so they fear coming for trying to protect me or to protect the practitioner. And so for those people that might be listening to this now and thinking there might be that type of a person, I just want to remind you that we get trained also how to protect our own energy, first of all. And we also, and that is something for myself that I have really done a lot to learn about and what works for me to protect my own energy, because it's just part of you as a practitioner. You just have to learn how to do that. But also, I'm not giving you my energy, and I'm not taking your energy and putting it into me. It's literally just a flow that I'm basically a conduit bringing it to you. And then what is being released and no longer needed is just being released. It's like ash. It's like it just flame goes and it releases. So
I love that. And I love that you touch on that because as a Reiki practitioner, as practitioners at all in the field of care, one of the things that we do get, and one of the, compassion fatigue and burnout and all of those different things that a lot of care workers do experience, one of the most important things for myself and other people is to learn how to protect our own energy. I can work all day with people in therapy and counseling and through trauma. And one of the things I have to remember at the end of the day is that they're not my stories. I may be there to assist and help in the stories, but they're not my stories. And so that's where I have to learn to disconnect. And the first few years of me doing this, I would lay in bed at night and I would think about the person and the problem and all of the ways in which I can do it. We can show up and offer what we can offer, and then we have to trust that that person is also going to do their work, but to not hold on to it. So I love that you touched on that. But I'm also just a little curious before, because I didn't realize how easy it was to speak with you and how quickly our hours just kind of like been chewed up. It's amazing. But one thing I wanted to kind of check in with you with is in COVID and in this time, what is some of the best advice you can give to people who may be struggling, or what are some of the things that you're doing for your own mental health and your own self-care at this time right now? What is something you can offer up to others?
So take time for yourself is the biggest thing I have to say. And that is something personally I have learned and needed to learn to work on as well. So a lot of us have been gifted time in ways, some of us not so much. A lot of us are being thrown into living conditions that we didn't necessarily recognize that we would be a part of, or living with people that you're so isolated and living with all the time, right? And so in that sense, it's okay to have your own emotions. It's okay to have your own feelings. It's okay. We're all dealing with it in our own ways. And so by really sitting with yourself once a day or once every other day and just sort of checking back in with you, that gives you time to come back to your own energy and be like, okay, yeah, this is how I feel today. Okay. And so that for me, and journaling is something that I have also been doing, because I think that as much as there might be really stressful times, I think there's lots of time of gratitude, and maybe there's just hilarious, I don't know about you, but I have some really hilarious COVID stories in general.
Oh yeah.
Probably create a sitcom with right now.
Yeah.
And so just journaling all of it will give you opportunity to be able to look back on it. And it also really helps to, if you're not feeling good, gets you in that mind of understanding why you're not feeling good. If you had a good day, it brings gratitude to that good day, and it really levels you up and makes you feel more positive as you're reminding yourself about the things that you're grateful for. So write down everything, write down nothing, even if you just have a random thought to say or whatever. I find that for me and a lot of my clients, it can be a really healing process.
I love that. I love it. Skylar, it's always a pleasure when I get to question to you. And, I'm going to put you on the spot here and say, I hope that I can not only have you back for a second interview, but maybe we can do it while you're in the kitchen and as am I, and we can start sharing some really cool ideas for some people.
Fun.
Yeah. And we'll just do a little cooking afternoon through our virtual screens together.
Yeah, that would be so fun. I would love that.
I love it. And if anyone's looking for you, can you just, let's just plug you out for a little bit and give us the website information of where people can go ahead and find you.
Yeah, so Instagram at The Vitality Way. And I've actually teamed up with a couple other Kingston locals, and we've just started a giveaway that will end on June 7th. So definitely check out my stories and see how you can get involved with that giveaway, because I'm actually giving an immune boosting menu plan and a dinner for two, a takeout dinner for two. So, and then there's like a lot of other things in that. So at The Vitality Way on Instagram, on Facebook, it's also The Vitality Way, my Facebook page. And if you have any questions or want to email me, thevitalityway@gmail.com. And then if you want my blog or want to book an appointment or just learn a little bit more about my offerings and what I do, holistic vitality coaching at .org is my website.
I love that. I love it so much. Thank you for taking time today to share yourself with me, to share yourself with everybody else. You just keep doing you, because it's fantastic. And I just feel so lucky to have chatted with you today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been such an honor.
It's a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye, hon.
Beautiful conversation having to do with all things nutrition, Reiki, just ways of healing ourselves from the inside out, which is great. So I'm really looking forward to having her back on our virtual hangouts. We'll do some cooking and we'll just, chat more about how to stay awesome. So have a great day.